So good morning, folks. Thanks for joining us today. We have a few slides just to sort of kick things off on some of the background material. We suspect probably most of you may have learned some of this already, but just in case we wanted to have you to be able to look at something as you start to formulate your questions. As Alex said, if you have any questions in the meantime, please feel free to put the questions into the Q&A box, and we will start getting them addressed immediately. We have quite a few experts already on the phone, so they're standing by ready to answer your questions. So first and foremost, a little bit about me. I am the community manager for our developer outreach for Intel RealSense. I used to be in the Navy. I did study physics, and I am on Twitter. So there's that if you want to know anything about me. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. So what we're trying to hopefully accomplish here is we really want to get two things. One, obviously, we want to educate you guys a bit, answer any questions that you have, address any issues or concerns that you may have, or anything that you've come across so far. It does look like about 90% of you have already gotten your cameras, which is great. That's super exciting to see. I'm sure the rest of you will be getting them soon. I know they've been getting it shipped out as fast as they possibly can, and I know some countries have a little bit longer customs process than others. So if you haven't gotten it yet, be patient. I'm sure they're on their way. And the other aspect is, as Andre suggested, is we do have a new initiative coming out, or not a new initiative, but sort of a side initiative, right, where we're really trying to get it into a situation where we can show that developers are able to do a rapid prototype of Intel RealSense technology and get it done pretty quickly, right? So I believe the deadline is December 17th, and there are some rewards that are part of the contest if you get a good solid prototype in before the date. Just to be clear, if you get it in before the December 17th deadline, that's not your final entry. So we want to make sure you understand that you still have the full length of the deadline to continue to polish and improve on your app. But we want to really be able to show the world that, yes, developers can do rapid prototypes with Intel RealSense technology. The SDK is ready for that and supports that. And so that's what we're going for. So hopefully you've already gotten all of your information by email and whatnot on that. But if you have any questions on that aspect, we do have Joel on the phone, and he can answer any of those questions. So with that, just a short overview for those that may not have seen it before. Right, the big thing that we're dealing with here in terms of Intel RealSense technology is that there has been a continuous evolution in computers for the last 30 years. Right? At one point over here on the left, you actually had to write in words, and that was the only way you communicated with any computer, was you'd put in words and it would pop out words, and that was the back and forth. And then eventually we got into a graphical interface, right, where you could do things like Windows or the first Mac OSs and whatnot, and use keyboards and mice, which is great. And then eventually we even got these touchscreens over here on the right, which is also another improvement. And in some ways it's a little bit more intuitive than the mouse and the keyboard. But in other ways, it's still a very specific user interface, right? It's a situation where you're having to do something very specific on the screen, and it's definitely not what you would consider natural by most people's recollections. So what we feel the next step is going to be gesture recognition, right? And by gesture recognition is that there's actually a lot of other things in there, the whole natural user interface, the ability to speak to your computer, the ability for your computer to watch your head, watch your face, watch for movement, right? So if you talk to a child and you ask them a very simple question, before they even start saying words, they'll probably start to shake their head or nod their head, depending on whether they're saying no or yes, right? So people have natural ways of interacting already. And wouldn't it be great if your computer, you could just nod or shake your head to it and have it react, right? So this is where we're beginning with. We think this whole natural user interface is going to be a whole new area for computing, just like the GUI was 20 years ago or something. But we want to make sure that the SDK itself is relatively easy for people that are just getting started, and it also has all the details that the experts need to make it really full and robust opportunity for them. Currently, today, we are working on the Windows 8.1. All the cameras that you guys have gotten, everything involved in this challenge is involving Windows 8.1. There will be versions of RealSense coming. I'll show a slide here in a second that will support Android. But we do feel this is a great opportunity for you developers that are getting into this market early. Those that have gotten your cameras already, you are one of the first just few hundreds of people maybe thousands at most in the world that have gotten access to this camera, right? And so that gives you a significant head start in starting to develop apps and games for this new and budding area. So we hope you're excited about that. And as I mentioned, there are a couple different forms of RealSense coming out. Here in the middle, right, we have the front-facing. That's what we're talking about today. That's what's using in the challenge. That'll be the first commercial versions that'll have the full gesture recognition and whatnot. Over on the left is something called Intel RealSense Snapshot, which is, you may have seen that from the last Intel Developer Zone. That's going to be using on Android tablets. Dell is the first one that has announced support for this, and that's going to use three different cameras so that you can basically do a lot of post-processing on a picture, but it's not going to be able to support gestures and things like that. So it's kind of like some people have said, like Instagram on steroids, right? You'll be able to do a lot of really cool post-processing on a given picture, but it's not going to be the full natural user interface. And then the third version of RealSense coming down the road in 2015 will be this rear-facing, this world-facing version, which will allow you to do things like make videos and still capture gestures and scan full object, like an entire person or a room or whatnot. So there are some of the RealSense technologies. We're going to be dealing with the first one here, or the middle one here today, and that's what you're dealing with in the challenge. That's what you've gotten the cameras for. But we want you to know that this is part of a much broader and wider opportunity, right? This one camera that you have here isn't really what we're going for. We're really going for a full market effect. Just for some specifics on the camera, just to optimize things, right, you should really be looking to go between a 20 centimeter or about 8 inches out to about a 120 centimeter or about a 4 foot range is basically the maximum that you should deal with. In general, your hands will likely be closer than your face, so that the hands are more optimized, a little bit closer, something out to, say, about 60 centimeters or so, or about 2 feet or something in that range. And the actual depth sensor, right, is an IR sensor, and the cone for that is about 55 degrees horizontally and about 70 degrees, or a little bit wider, vertically. So these are some of the details of the camera. So when you're making your apps, you want to make sure that you try to make sure that you allow for gestures that stay within that volume and whatnot. And as part of what we're talking about, right, we really are expecting this to be a full-fledged market shifting opportunity. This is the actual board itself, all of the Intel RealSense aspects that you need, the devices that you've got shipped, the cameras that you've got shipped. If you pop them open, and please don't pop them open, but if you had to or whatever, this is the board you'd see inside. This is an actual size. This is a U.S. quarter, and down here are all the OEMs that already had a full commitment to producing systems with Intel RealSense technology in them. So this is going to be a market shifting opportunity. This is going to be a widespread opportunity. These things are going to get built directly into the bezel of laptops and all-in-ones and other platforms. So it's not going to be something like the cameras that you guys have gotten are purely focused for developer work, right? These developer kits that you've gotten is really intended to give you all a head start, a jump ahead, if you will, before the full systems are available. Specifically, I'm sure you guys have already gotten a hold of the SDK. Actually, it's not in beta anymore. Sorry, that should be gold. I didn't update that. My apologies. But the full gold version is out. Obviously, the depth itself is a VGA resolution. The camera is a full 1080p RGB, and it does require the full USB 3 interface. So when you plug it into any of the systems that you have, if you're not using provided system or something, please make sure you're looking for that blue tab inside of the USB port. Right? It really does have that kind of bandwidth, that kind of throughput, and you need that USB 3 to handle that kind of traffic flow. Also, as I'm sure you've been told a few times, it does require the 4th generation, or Haswell is a code name for that, Intel Core processor, and as we've mentioned, it runs on Windows 8.1. If at any point, obviously we're really happy that you guys are here on the webinar today, but if when you're done with this, or if you need any more help, we do have this one URL here, software.intel.com/RealSense, which is a single point that you guys can go to for all of the information you need. We have forums on there, we have blogs on there, we have code samples, other type of case studies and whatnot. All the information that we have pertaining to RealSense gets contained in one place to make it easy for you guys to find. So again, thanks for attending this webinar, but when it's done and over with, feel free that you still have an area here that you can go to make sure that you get more information if you need it. So real quick, we'll buzz through this. Obviously, it will look at your hands, it will look at your face. There is a speech component, and coming down the road in early 2015 will be an environmental component, or object scanning, more exactly, right? Specifically, when we look at the hands, if you hadn't seen some of the documentation yet, it will support a full 22 points per hand, right? And up to 2 hands, so it can either be left and right, left and left, right and right. Somebody can play rock, paper, scissors with each other, whatever it is. There are 9 static and dynamic pre-built-in functions or gestures that are already recognized. From a facial standpoint, right, they can do up to 78 points of landmark detection. We are working on motion recognition. It's still coming along, and it can even, for example, look at pulse estimation, right? Speech recognition is fairly known. It's not dissimilar to what you've probably seen in the past. It's much better for command and control than it is for dictation. Dictation is still an evolving area, but the one important difference between this and maybe other technologies you've seen is this is actually local speech recognition, meaning it's entirely contained on your computer. It doesn't access any server farms over the web or anything else. And then, as I mentioned, we will be bringing in this environmental or object scanning available down the road, and that'll probably be in early 2015, hopefully around January or so. So required hardware, just to recap quickly, right, that 4th generation Intel Core processor. The code name for that was the Haswell. Obviously, 8.1, the 64-bit mode. The desktop will be the first version that comes out. The modern UI will be something that's supported down the road. Languages that we support are C++, C#, JavaScript, and Java. So if you guys want, if you have other languages that you want to see us adopt or support, you can also put those into the Q&A box. So I don't know if anyone's had a chance to write in questions yet, but yeah, it's in there. And then, oh, I see maybe a few questions. Guys, were there any questions that you wanted to start answering yet, or?
Just there was a question about earlier generation CPUs or AMD CPUs. I think if you check out the forum, you'll see that there are people trying it on earlier CPUs with some success, but only if they're on Windows 8.1 or later, and then only with certain parts of the SDK. We just don't have the ability to test all the CPUs Intel's made or all the OSs, so we are only saying we support 4th generation CPU because it has functionality that aren't in previous CPUs and Windows 8.1.
Yeah, that's a good question. In fact, one of the engineers that we have on the phone, Meghana, did try to use the 3rd generation Intel Core processor, and it did work to a degree, but it really swamped the capabilities of the processor. So when we say the 4th generation Intel Core processor, it's not just a marketing thing or whatever. It really is because you need that kind of horsepower, that kind of processing power to crunch this very detailed amount of data and get it to not only be able to do all of the gesture recognitions and whatnot, but then also allow you to support a game or an app on top of that. So that is the other thing. And then obviously processors by other companies aren't going to be supported because it's an Intel technology. That should be probably pretty obvious. So
Eric,
anyway.
if I could just add to that.
Yeah.
I would say that there are specific instruction set requirements for some of the modalities that would also impose some amount of constraint on the processor that we would have to use to support Intel RealSense. So performance is one and the instruction set is the other. So those are the 2 criteria.
No, that's good. Another question that we just got asked here is if there is a bundle with Eclipse, and the honest answer is no, there really isn't, and we're specifically doing it that way. What we've done is we've said that we're supporting Visual Studio, and we're also supporting Eclipse. But I will tell you, I have actually seen developers in some of the hacker labs we've already conducted use other platforms. For example, the Intel SDK actually got used in some cases, as we mentioned. JavaScript is supported, so we're purposely not trying to bundle any of the IDEs in, because we know that developers have their quote-unquote comfortable shoes, right? We know that there are IDEs that you guys like, and we're trying to make sure that the SDK stays separate from that. So so that's one question. There's another question in here: is the Intel RealSense SDK web server open source? So just to jump ahead a little bit, yeah, here we go. So this is some of the content that we have when we talk about being able to support HTML5 with the web. And so I can definitely say at this point the web server is not open source. I don't think that we plan to. Bryan, Colleen, Meghana, do you guys know? Ever heard anything about that?
No.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't. I don't think we're going to make it open source. We will continue to make all of the SDK and whatnot free and open and available to people. But we're certainly not going to try and make money off of the SDK, like selling it or whatnot. So that is definitely the direction we're going. But we're probably not going to open source it, at least not for the near term. I've heard no plans to that. Another question was if this will work with the Intel Core 2, which is, I'm trying to think, probably 5 generations ago, so I can pretty quickly say no, it won't. It simply won't have the processing power. Is there any way to get Unity Pro for this development? Yeah, so unfortunately at this point we don't have any prearranged setup with Unity to support Pro licenses for developers in this contest. Joel, I haven't heard your voice yet, but are you on?
Yes, I'm on. And
Okay.
to my knowledge, there's no arrangements with Unity to provide free licenses for the Pro version.
Yeah, sorry about that. Is Ubuntu or Linux in general, I would expand the question, on the horizon? I think the answer is yes. Like I said, we've gone around to, I know I've done at least 4 Hacker Labs myself, and that is one of the key questions that we get asked is, will there be support for Linux and will there be support for Windows 7? I think the answers to both of those will probably become yes down the road. It's not going to be available for this challenge. This challenge will continue to be exclusively on Windows 8.1, but it will be something that is definitely strongly being considered in the future, because outside of the consumer approach, which is what we're doing here, right? This is what the whole challenge went out is really about talking to the consumers and getting people to develop apps for laptops and all-in-ones and ultrabooks and whatnot. Down the road in the embedded market, things like airport kiosks or whatever else you might want, that'll be areas where some of the other OSs are probably going to be needed just because of the very nature of the long tail of embedded usages. Meghana or anyone else, do you guys want to give some context on where information, more documentation is available about the, let's see if I can get to the slide here, HTML5, the web server?
The SDK actually comes packed with the instruction manual as well as a lot of code samples. Eric, so if you see the processing framework is actually Java, right? So you will have C#, C++, Unity samples, and Java samples all built into the manual. So that would be the first place to start.
Okay.
So if you're specifically looking at certain modalities, they actually show you how to walk through different APIs and include them inside your application. And there are also fully developed sample applications that come bundled with the SDK that you could just play with and see what it is doing.
Well, that's good. That's very good. So, Paul, hopefully you can find the documentation from the SDK. I know if you also go to our website, we do have information there. As mentioned, software.intel.com. We have all the documentation also contained in that area. So that's a backup if you don't pull it out of the SDK itself. You want to? So, Marina, you were asking about more information about how to work with processing framework, libraries, whatnot. I hate to sound redundant, but yeah, again, I believe all that information, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe all that information is in the documentation. Also on the website, we have other things like code samples and case studies and whatnot, where we may have walked through even greater detail on these things. But that's where I would send you first for all additional information. All right. No, okay, Paul. So you're looking to implement your own drivers. That would be really cool. We do definitely have a form, and from the form we can probably, if you post a question in there, if you can't get the information you want, we could probably follow up with you more directly to help you with that. So we're really excited about your enthusiasm. We'd love for people to be making new drivers. So yeah, that would be awesome, and we'll look forward to working with you on that. And the web server JavaScript support for speech synthesizer. I'm going to open that question to my experts. I feel like the answer would have been yes, but I don't want to say that and be wrong because we specifically say gesture and facial recognition here. Guys, will the web server support the speech synthesizer part of the SDK?
Let us check and we'll answer that in just a minute. We want to confirm.
Okay, we're gonna take a pin, put a pin in that. Come back to you here in a little bit and try to answer that question. So these have been really good questions so far. Thanks for that. So if you have more questions, have them keep coming in. We'll try to address them as we go along. In the meantime, just to go back to the presentation, we did mention that we do definitely have Unity support. It is a pro version of it, but we have seen that some people can definitely use it and get going pretty quickly. And so just to recap quickly on some of our developer programs, this website I keep talking about, software.intel.com/RealSense, we definitely want you guys to be very aware of that. That is where we're going to contain all the information, including blogs and forums and everything else. Obviously, we do have in select places Hacker Labs, hackathons that we've been doing. I know I've done 4 of them myself personally. I know another 5 have gone off in the U.S. So we have these events, and we'll also be going to trade shows as appropriate. And then one other big thing we want to make sure you guys know about is that once you're done with your app, right, and this webinar is specifically in support of the challenge, so obviously we want you guys to get in that, but once your app is done, we do have a Share Your App showcase, right? This development is not just about the challenge, it's not just about going after the prizes. You can submit your apps into this Share Your App showcase. Again, it's at software.intel.com/RealSense, and what that means is that you'll be able to get all kinds of great exposure for RealSense just as the market starts to emerge, right? Just as the first systems are coming online, you'll be able to be one of the first people out there sort of, quote-unquote, showing your wares. If you think back to the early days of the smartphone market, wouldn't it have been great to be one of the very first people to make even a simple solitaire app for the smartphone market? Now, we're not advocating solitaire for RealSense. That's not my point, but you know what I'm saying. There's probably already all kinds of great apps out there for wherever else, and just making that in the RealSense area, maybe solitaire would be a fun app. I don't know. I'm not a big solitaire player myself, but yeah, that is something that is a great opportunity. It gives you great exposure. Just to jump back to some of the questions, one person asked if there was Python support, and as Colleen mentioned, there isn't yet, but it is something that we've gotten asked for several times. That's probably the most popular language I've been asked for in all the travel that I've done so far. So that is definitely feedback that we've given back to the team. 2 other languages that have also been requested a lot are MATLAB and LabVIEW are the other 2 that people have been looking. Another question, folks, is if there's hacker support for OpenCV. I don't think I know the answer to that. Bryan, Meghana, Colleen?
Yeah, people have demonstrated the ability to use OpenCV with the camera, particularly with the color, color stream, and we don't really have documentation that covers that level of support, but yeah, OpenCV and MGooCV are able to use certain aspects of the camera.
Okay, great. All right, so one other thing I want to mention here, right, is obviously everyone on this call works for Intel or supports Intel directly, but you can go get reviews from other people, right? This is a particular gentleman out of Gizmodo, and he was able to get one of the first exposures to this technology, obviously back in 2013, and he was super excited. I won't use is potty mouth of the language. You can read it there, but he thinks it's pretty awesome, and we do too. So there are definitely people outside of Intel that are really excited about it, and we hope you guys are enjoying what you've been able to do so far. Yep. So Joel, there's a question on the board here in terms of, can I update my project? And I assume the question is, it sounds like maybe Paul may have submitted something and he may want to be looking to update a previous submission. Do you want to handle that one?
Yes, yes. So you can take your project a different direction. It needs to be related to the original idea, but as you guys probably know, you're submitting more details about the project, right? Like descriptions, and so you can definitely take it to a different direction. There've been some people done that in previous contests.
Thanks for that. So there you go, Paul. We're excited about whatever you're working on. It sounds like you're doing great things. I'm trying to read the question from Ricardo, and I'm having a little trouble. My app will involve many types of components. When I upload the app, will there be interaction so I can, if necessary, troubleshoot the installation? I feel like the answer, Ricardo, is hopefully going to be I think the whole hope is that you can actually not only develop your app on your systems, but also run the apps on your system and use that as a QA. I don't. Maybe you can then just upload whatever you sent to into the challenge onto a different computer, maybe to do it as another type of QA. I don't believe there's any component, Joel, you can correct me if I'm wrong, there's any component to be doing any sort of remote running of the app off of other systems. I don't think that's part of it. Right, Joel?
Yeah. Eric, if I can just add to that.
Sure.
I think the requirement would be to package whatever would be necessary for us to install it on systems here. All in one executable, so that way we wouldn't have any dependencies when we're testing out the application. I think that's probably the question.
Oh, okay, yeah, sorry,
Yes.
That makes more sense. Yes, I'm glad you answered that, Meghana. I was going in a different direction for the question. All right, so yeah, any submissions you do, if they need independent libraries or whatnot, jQuery as an example or something like that, right? Yeah, you should be bundling all of the required dependencies all together so that we don't have any missing dependencies. Sorry, I misread that question. Joint data, are there 4 different objects for coordinates? What are the ones used in suggestions? Why recommendations? Yeah, guys, I'm going to punt on that one too. It sounds like he's asking is, maybe is the joint, maybe it is the joint data. In the joint data, there are 4 different objects for coordinates. Guys, yeah, I don't know. Can anybody answer? I don't understand what he's asking about in terms of the 4 different
I'm not sure we quite
joints.
understand the question. I do perhaps still want to jump in while Lloyd, if you could clarify the question a little bit. There are hand recognition and hand tracking, joint recognition, and then we also have something called blob or contour mode, which can be used with some gestures such as fist or side of hand to get a better read of what the user is doing. But I'm really not clear what your question is covering, so if you could type us more, please, Lloyd.
In the meantime, Lloyd, what I have up here is a slide that goes through the different points of articulation that we're working on today in terms of the skeleton tracking. So when the system is scanning your hand, when it's seeing your hand, these are the points of articulation that we have. Joel, if I send you a presentation, are you able to send it out to everyone that you invited to this webinar?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so Ricardo, we can definitely, when we're done with this webinar, obviously I'm not going to try and do it during the webinar, but when we're done with this webinar, I can definitely send out these slides for your review. I will say this is all entirely based on the work that I've all of the documentation that we've already put out. But yeah, we'll definitely send them out. If it's helpful, we're happy to do it. Yeah, so I'm going to jump ahead. Somebody asked about faces, so I'm going to jump ahead to faces. As my computer crashed. Okay, there we go. Oh, what the? No. Sorry, hit the wrong button. There we go. All right. So when you look at the facial recognition, right? These are some of the details on the landmark tracking. We've talked about there being 78 different points, right? And you can see several of them here, right? We're going to be looking at things like the eyebrow, because that's very important for emotions or detecting things. Things like the eyes, we are able to not just look at faces in terms of looking at the faces, but also be able to track the entire head and or the orientation of the head. So just to go back a slide, I think, right, if you, and we talked about this a little bit before, right, we're saying the word pitch, which is a very technical term, but the normal layman would use the phrase nod, right? When we say yaw, we mean shake, right? So when someone nods their head yes or shakes their head no, you can actually make that an interaction of your app, of your game, right? If there's a simple yes-no question for people, they can literally respond just with their head motion. So that's one of the things that we think is going to be very interesting. So Albert, hopefully we answered that question for you. If you have a different angle on that, please let me know. Which joint detection did you use for your gestures? So I hate to be like this, but I feel like the answer is probably at the least most of them, right? I can go through some of the specific gestures themselves, right? For example, the big five and the V sign. When you look at the differences between those two here on the left, obviously the middle finger and the pointer finger are exactly the same, so we're tracking them, and then we watch the other fingers curl in into that ball to make a V sign. So I feel like we're trying to take a holistic approach to the whole skeletal thing. I don't necessarily think it's a situation where we count let's say 10 of the 22 points of articulation. I think it's a full hand watching when we try to look for these gestures, because when you start to look at some of the other possibilities in the gestures, right, things like this one especially, the difference between the two-finger pinch and the full hand pinch and the two-finger open, or kind of like the OK sign pinch, right? These things clearly we're using a lot of different points of articulation to differentiate between these three gestures alone, which are obviously very similar to each other. Oh gosh, Meghana, do you happen to know off the top of your head what the latest version number is of the SDK? I do not have that.
We're typing that in.
We're typing that answer.
Typing that into the good, because I do not want to be sitting there trying to remember that one off the top of my head.
That's all right. We are getting it. Don't worry.
Yeah, I know Python needs it, but that probably won't help. All right, can we please make a sample code here for a simple application, maybe like a small demo? I feel like we definitely, so what we can do is, Bryan, I think we had some sample apps that we've been showing at the Hacker Labs. Maybe yes. What we can do is send those sample apps over to Joel, and so when Joel follows up with this webinar and he sends out the slide presentation, he can maybe include some of the sample app that you send along to help them with that. So moderate. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, Erica, we can certainly do that. We have been developing sample apps that demonstrate the different modalities like head tracking and hand and gesture tracking. We will be publishing these shortly on the RealSense zone, and so some of these will be available over the website, and we can certainly send those over to Joel as well.
Okay, great. So moderator, there you go. That's we'll definitely send out sample codes. Albert, just so you know, and I hate to be a spoiler alert here, right? But this slide deck that I'm showing you is effectively the exact slides that I've been presenting at the Hacker Lab, minus the welcome Austin slide or something like that for local events. But yeah, all of the actual informational content that we've been giving at the Hacker Labs are actually in these slides that we've been showing so far today, and then we'll be sending along. Ricardo's asking if he should update the firmware. I believe I've seen the answer to this, which is in the camera, in the box that you got, there should have been a getting started guide. And I feel like one of the first steps in that, if I recall correctly, was actually explorations on how to update the firmware. Meghana, does that sound right?
Yes, so the firmware that would be required for the camera that you received in the kit is 2.38.5. This firmware is actually available on the software.intel.com/RealSense website, so you can use the tool that is available there to flash the firmware onto the camera. The
Perfect.
instructions should be available on the Getting Started kit.
Okay, so Ricardo, hopefully that answers your question. If you need more, then please follow up with us, and we'll definitely try to support you. I feel like we're catching up on these questions, so if I've missed something, guys, just speak up. And oh, Paul's asking how do they report a bug. I feel like the forum is where the bug reporting is going currently. That sound right, guys?
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, just Paul, just if you find a bug, please post it into the forums on software.intel.com/RealSense, and we'll get those addressed as quickly as we can. Sorry for any bugs. Obviously, some things happen, but
yeah, some information about what about the context of the bug would definitely help the Intel team analyze what is going on. So.
And just a note, there's also blogs and articles as well as the forum, and some of those will start in the next few weeks to cover tips and tricks or known issues. So it's good to watch not just the forum but also the articles.
Yes, absolutely. So Albert, you may have not been on when we were answering a question about Linux and whatnot. So the current answer, right, the very technical answer right now is all the work that we're doing in development on Intel RealSense technology. The version you guys are working on is called, the SKU number is F200 for forward, and 200 means it's using the IR technology. All of this work is currently on Windows 8.1, and it's really focused towards helping you guys get a jump start on the market before all of the consumer systems come and hit the market, starting late this year and certainly filling in more in early 2015. In terms of Linux and other OSs and things like that, it's definitely something that we're looking at exploring down the road, but for the purposes of this challenge, we won't be supporting SteamOS or any of the other Linuxes. This challenge and the early efforts here are firmly focused on Windows 8.1 because that's where the first actual consumer platforms are going to be, right? It would be great, obviously, down the road if Valve were to bring out a RealSense-enabled Steambox or whatnot. Obviously, we'd love to support that, but if and when that happens, obviously, we're not going to try and talk about other companies' roadmaps. But just from a pure, logic standpoint, we'd love as many companies as possible to support this technology. We'd love for it to see it grow and expand and whatnot. So definitely something we'd look at supporting if it was something that the other companies were interested in. But for now, again, the focus is on Windows 8.1. So, all right. So while other questions may or may not come in, we're just going to look at a few other things in terms of, and this is one of the areas that I've gotten a lot of questions on when I've done these hacker labs, right, is when, one of the questions is, can you make your own gestures? And the simple answer is yes, you absolutely can. The more technical answer is you can with caveats, right? It's definitely not a trivial thing to start making your own gestures. We have one of the companies that were in the challenge last year called Chronosapiens, and they've worked on an early prototype, and they have a gesture, and I can't do it here. You can't see my hand, but it kind of looks like a swimming, like you would show like a fish swimming if you're mimicking that with your hand, just a little wave pattern. And that's a gesture that they created specifically for the game. In that phase of the game, you have a turtle that you're controlling, and he's swimming up and down and trying to catch balls of light while he avoids predators and whatnot. So creating new gestures is definitely possible. If you want to start to look to do that, some of the things that you want to do is try to avoid what they call occlusion, which is basically a fancy word for one part of your hand in front of another part, right? Because the active scanning can't go through, it's not an X-ray. And so obviously other things like holding objects and whatnot is also not going to help because it will confuse things. As we showed, there are skeletal modeling that it's doing when you hold a pen or something. It doesn't make the computer obvious to them as, oh, that's a pen. It may think that you have a sixth finger or something, right? Because it's seeing something, it's scanning something actively that doesn't seem likely. So, is there any way for participants to get a second camera for other team members located elsewhere in a timely manner other than the reservation way on the site? Joel, I'm going to jump in and say the answer to that is probably no, but if you want to correct me.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, that's correct. We only have allocation for one camera per
yes.
team.
We have sent out basically thousands of cameras for this challenge, so we have put out a lot of effort to try and enable as many people as possible. But to make sure that everything's very equitable, we're only sending out one per entry, so that's where that is. Yes, I'm sorry. So Albert, the New York Hacker Lab, I'd rather not call it canceled. It's probably going to get postponed until Q1. We had a bit of a snafu happen, and we're looking to do it in Q1. We'll be doing a Hacker Lab, I believe, later this month in Orlando is the current plans, but we'll be trying to do the New York Hacker Lab hopefully in, like I said, in Q1. So sorry about that if that's inconvenient in any way. As mentioned, the slides that you'll be getting after this are exactly the slides that are going out in the Hacker Lab, and exactly my same voice. I have not changed my voice from the Hacker Labs at all, so you haven't really missed out on much, believe it or not, except like coffee in the morning. That's good. For custom 3D objects, it looks like, Colleen, you may have already answered that, but Prabhu, if you have other questions, please let us know. Paul, robots, we love robots. We absolutely love robots. If your question is, would it be really cool if you were able to do Intel RealSense on a robot, the answer is yes. If your question is, are we going to be supporting apps and games and whatnot for the challenge on robots, I feel like the answer is no, because again, the whole focus of the challenge is making games and apps for the consumer systems, the all-in-ones, the laptops that are coming out. Joel, obviously, feel free to override me there, but that's our focus for now.
Yeah, let me clarify, Eric. If some of you observed last year's challenge, we actually had some winners controlling like a modified version of a Roomba, right, or robot, as well as a Lego robot. So that's actually allowed for this challenge.
Right. Yeah. Sorry.
Definitely, they use still the controls of those robots are Windows 8.1 systems running on Haswell. So it's not really a fully autonomous robot with all the CPUs internal to the robot itself. But it's almost like a tech demo. But yes, there have been some winners of that in previous challenges, so that's allowed.
Yeah, and also I've seen people controlling quadcopter aerial drones with RealSense. But the actual app itself is going to be running on a Windows 8.1 computer, and then it controls those drones or whatever else remotely. So those are really cool. I love when those happen. Hey guys, so Andrew asked a very detailed question, and I think Colleen is directing you towards the forum. That sounds like a very, very specific question, so I'm thinking we're not going to be able to get to the bottom of that here. So we'll ask you, Arun, very politely, if you wouldn't mind posting that in the forum, and we'll try to follow up with you and get that resolved as quickly as we can. Yeah, Paul, I'm going to say, as Colleen mentioned, I love robot, and as Joel mentioned, if it's Paul, I'm going to ask maybe you follow up with Joel. I feel like yes, we definitely love robots and whatnot, and we've done a lot of remote control with the robots. If you were going to make a full-fledged autonomous robot, on the system, that still may be very cool. And if that's the idea that you submitted and got accepted, then I'm going to say go with it, right? If Joel and the rest of his crew liked your idea that you submitted, then that's a green flag. So yes, please go ahead. Joel, we got Karina here asking or mentioning that she hasn't gotten her camera. She's in Mexico. I assume that's a she. I'm hoping if it's not, I apologize. I'm doing the best I can here. So Joel, maybe that would, if you could look into Karina Sosa's.
Yeah, there's actually an email address to send those to. I'll post that here to her question. But there's an email contact you can write to find out what happened.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll follow up. Just one quick one in here. Some of you, make sure you check your email, because some of the requirements for shipments of the cameras, after if you're required to accept that camera loaner agreement online on the Qantas website, on your profile on the Qantas website. So make sure you do that, and that triggers the agency to ship the camera. So once you've done that, it's a matter of now us tracking the camera through FedEx to reach you. So, but definitely, yeah, we'll follow up on your camera.
The other question that got asked, Meghana already answered it, is the firmware, right? If you go to our website there, you'll see the drivers and the update. It's pretty clear. It should be pretty easy. There's sensor fusion for support of other input devices such as IMU gloves using OpenCV. I don't feel, I'm sorry, Albert, I don't feel at this time we've been able to support that ourselves. Obviously, I think if you come up with things, that would be really cool. But yeah, I don't think any of our SDKs support any other external technology like IMU gloves or any other kind of gesture technology. But so that's what. Joel, question specifically on the early deadline, right? So if Ricardo submits something for the early deadline, when will he get notified that, hey, congratulations, you won one of the Rapid Prototypes awards?
Yeah, so officially we have to wait until the final judging, right? Because if, remember, it goes only to the top 80 submissions. So let's say 150 submitted, so we'll have to wait. We're only going to judge the demos one time. So depending on the scores of those demos, then we'll say, okay, this top 80, which is 50 in the Pioneer track and 30 in the Ambassador track, will be the winners of this $1,000 early submission bonus. So that's around March timeframe, the March timeframe next year.
So, Joel, not to get myself in trouble, hopefully, but just to make sure I'm not confused myself, I felt like what happened is if a developer submitted a rapid prototype before December 17th, then the rapid prototypes would all be getting compared against each other on a level playing field, and then the final judging would be the final submissions, and all of those apps would be getting compared against each other to find the grand prize winners and whatnot. Am I wrong?
Correct. They will not be compared against the final demos, right? So it's almost like you think of it like there's two pools of demos for judging. One of them is the early submissions,
right,
and the other ones are the final submissions. So
right,
think of it that way.
Okay,
Just as Eric mentioned, you can definitely submit early, and then you can take the same idea, the same prototype, and continue to refine it and submit for the final deadline of February 15th.
Good. Okay, I want to make sure I wasn't steering people wrong. Yeah. So if you submit something in terms of rapid prototypes in before the early deadline, which we really hope you do, because we're really excited about showing the world of all these rapid prototypes, then you can continue to refine it, and that will not be what gets judged in the final part of the contest for the grand prizes. You can continue to improve it and refine it, and that will be what gets judged. But in terms of finding out which is the best app, the prototypes, all the rapid prototypes, will be judged against each other. So you don't have to worry about doing a rapid prototype and it not winning against a fully polished app. So, let's see here. So it looks like a lot of the questions are getting answered. I just want to mention really clearly, if you guys get a chance, we do have an email address that's put into the answers, right? So Intel RealSense Challenge at the Game Agency, and so that is the official email address. So if Prabhu, specifically for you, but for anybody else who needed that email address, it's actually in our answer column. So please go there and look for that. I'm sure Joe will add that to the follow-up email as well. But let's see, to trying to hit some more of the questions in the last 8 minutes. So what are all the things that we need to submit for the demo? I feel like we went through this a little bit before, but just to reiterate, effectively, if your app or game has any dependencies, any libraries, jQuery, whatever it may be, that it needs to work, please make sure that you include all of that stuff in your executable, right? So what we're doing with all of our judges is they will get your app or game as the file that you submit into the challenge. And they will install it just like a user would install it, right? They'll run the executable. And if they get into a situation where, for example, right, something pops up, there's an error, it says DLL not found, that's not a positive user experience. So if you need anything bundled in, please make sure you do that, and we'll go from there. So Joel, Karina's saying that she did sign the agreement with the email, so Karina, we'll take that as a look up to check on the status of your camera heading down to Mexico, and the game agency will follow up with you about the tracker status or whatnot. Sorry about the inconvenience at this point. So Albert, I think, and Joel, educate me here if I'm still not right. What we're saying here in terms of how much of the early submission prototype has to be completed, we're looking for you to have it be usable, right? So I'm going to make a really bad example, right? If you were doing some sort of, let's say, RealSense Pac-Man game, right, where you just use your thumb instead of a joystick, right? I think we're looking for it to at least run to a degree, even if all the colors aren't right, or even if the ghosts aren't in there, even if it's just a situation where you can control Pac-Man around an empty screen with the thumb. I feel like we're looking for just a modicum of work, and then obviously that will get compared to everybody else. Joel, that sound right?
Yes. It should run. If it's a game, it's playable. Maybe it's only one level. Maybe it uses only one modality versus two that you plan in your final submission. So things like that you can take. But as Eric mentioned, it should run. The demo should run. And just a follow-up to those people asking for what's required in the demos. Make sure you include a video, right? Of the that's one of the minimum requirements, is that it has a video showing the demo running, or you playing the demo, or somebody else playing the demo. So that's an important piece as well.
Yeah, sorry, I was just thinking about the actual executable itself. My apologies. So Albert, another example is if you were doing some sort of some book app, right, like a cookbook or something where you can control the pages with your gestures. You could literally just make the app so that there's a blank book that you can control with the gestures, and then fill in the recipes or the travel guide or whatever the type of book it is you're doing down the road, for the final submission. At this point, the rapid prototypes are exactly that. We're just showing that, yes, we want to show to the world that, yes, developers can do things in just a few short weeks and actually make things usable. We want to get people excited about this, so that's what we're shooting for here. So, Joel, sorry to keep harping on you. Partha is asking a question in terms of several ideas were submitted, and unfortunately Partha is not sure which one got accepted. So I'm going to ask that the game agency follows up with Partha and clarifies which of the submitted ideas were the ones that were approved to proceed.
Right, so the final list, so just quickly on this one, I think it's about a week more before the final list of finalists are identified. So, but some of the early finalists have already been identified. That's why they got their cameras already. The reason for that is just some disqualifications going on, right? People are not accepting agreements. People said, yeah, I'm not going to thank you, but I'm not interested in this phase 2 anymore. I got other work to continue, and some of them below 18 years old. So there's some disqualifications going on. So we're still pulling in other additional finalists based on their scores during the ideation phase judging.
Thank you. So hopefully that answers your question, Partha. Yeah, so just to say this one more time, the the early demo, the rapid prototype that you submit before December 17th is not going to be judged as your final entry, unless you don't do anything else with it. Obviously, if you don't update it, then it is. But yes, even though the December 17th comes quickly, you can continue to improve it, polish it, add new levels, add more color, better graphics, whatever you want, and all the way up until the final deadline, which, Joel, I don't have off the top of my head, but I feel like it's in 2015, right?
February 15th.
February 15th, okay. Day after Valentine's Day, because we don't want you to miss Valentine's Day. So, yeah, up until that deadline, you can continue to improve your app, your game, whatever it may be. And so don't feel like trying to go in for the early submission is going to hamper your chance. In fact, in any way, it becomes a forcing function and helps make you try to get things done quicker and earlier. Oh boy, so there's a question about Oculus Rift and Wii Remote. I don't feel like the SDK is going to recognize any of the other external hardware. If one of the engineers wants to correct me, feel free. But at this point, our SDK is very firmly focused on the RealSense camera that you guys have gotten and the RealSense boards and technologies that systems will have. We don't currently support other external technologies. Obviously, things like OpenCV and whatnot are getting supported, as we've talked about. But in terms of other companies' hardware, that's not where we're at this point. Joel, I don't know what the legal question is here. The final judging, will it take into account whether an app was made by one developer or group? I feel like the answer is no. Yeah, all the entries are just being judged on the pure, the pure app or game submitted. Is that correct, Joel? Yeah.
Correct, yeah. We have no visibility on how many people are behind the demo. So just the one person that submitted it, and they put their experience, right? They put their developer experience. That's part of the submission.
Yeah, so Ohad, sorry about that. We're not taking into account any of the, whether it's a big team or small team, whatever the final product is the final product. It looks like we're getting a lot of these questions answered. Some of them are looking for follow-up, right? So again, the email address for the challenge is fairly long but simple: Intel RealSense App Challenge at thegameagency.com. That's their main email for interacting. Do we have to use the camera only on well-lit rooms like an office room, or can the camera work in daytime without electrical light? So the answer to that really, honestly, is yeah, Colleen already answered it. It can't be direct sunlight. The IR sensor will get swamped by the natural IR component of the sun. The other thing is, to be honest, is the IR itself can actually work in the dark, technically, right? And people have done like quick demos of basically, what do you want to call it, like low-level light or night vision goggles and things like that. Obviously, you won't get any of the color. You'll just get the depth and things like that. But yeah, you want it to be fairly well lit if you're actually looking to take into account, let's say, the color component of someone's face, like you're doing things like that. Then that will be that. Joel, when is? Okay, Joel already answered that question. In about a week, after the Nook prizes are being announced. We're running up on 10 o'clock here, so. Alex, where do you want to go from here? It looks like we'll try to answer these questions or follow up with people if they've continued to submit questions, but it looks like we're at the end of our time. So at this point, Alex, I think I'm going to turn it back over to you with a final, thank you to everybody that attended. We hope that you found this webinar useful. We will be sending out the slides and some sample apps afterwards. Joel will have that sent out by the game agency at some point later. And I'll turn it over to you, Alex.
All right. Be sure to use the forum, too.
And the forums, yes. Please use the forums.
All right. Thank you very much, Eric. Thank you very much to the whole team, to Joel, Bryan, Colleen, Meghana. Thanks for your support. Thanks to all of you guys who took part. So just to let you know, there is a last webinar session on Tuesday. All right, so basically I'm just sharing the link right now, okay, so feel free, Obviously, if you have more questions, okay, I guess you guys are going to work hard on the weekend, so feel free to join us and ask more questions to the Intel team. I'm going to put all the sessions that I've been recording. I'm going to add it online and send it to everybody. Okay, so you should receive it like probably in 6 hours approximately. So yeah, have a nice weekend to everybody, and see you on Tuesday for some, or otherwise see you later, and good luck for the follow-up with the challenge. Bye-bye.